Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're plunging into the heart of early America. We're exploring the Middle Colony.
Right. New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, often kind of skipped over, I think.
Exactly. But vital. We've got some really rich historical texts to guide us.
Yeah, good stuff.
And our mission, really, is to uncover what made this region unique, significant.
And how it still resonates today.
Absolutely. It's not just New England and the South. The Middle Colonies were this crucial bridge.
A distinctive identity, definitely. We need to unpack their geography, the people, the big events.
Okay, let's start with that bird's eye view.
Right.
The sources jump right into their farming prowess.
Oh, yeah. The agriculture was huge.
Not just like getting by.
Yeah.
They were a powerhouse for grains, wheat, barley.
Oats, yeah. They were literally called the bread colony.
Makes sense. They exported so much grain.
And not just grain, right? Fruits, vegetables, too. A lot of variety.
And this abundance, it seems, allowed for more social mobility, maybe, compared to places just focused on one cash crop.
I think so. It supported, a wider range of trades, professions. It wasn't just farming.
And this ties directly back to the geography you mentioned.
Absolutely. Those rivers, the Susquehanna, the Delaware, the Hudson, they weren't just pretty.
No, they were vital arteries.
Exactly. Crucial for the fur trade, getting deep into the interior.
And for exploring the backcountry, too. Lifelines, really.
Economic and exploratory lifelines, yeah.
Okay, so what about the social structure? The sources suggest a kind of middle ground.
Yeah, generally less aristocratic, you could say, than New England or the South.
Although, early New York was a bit of an exception there.
True, initially, but overall, land holdings were more moderate in size.
Not those huge southern plantations.
Right. Or the smaller, maybe tighter-knit New England farms. It led to fewer really stark divisions.
So a different feel to the society.
Definitely. And the economy mirrored that balance in a way.
How so?
Well, they weren't as industrialized as New England, maybe.
But more diversified than the South.
Much more. Shipbuilding was big. Lumbering, too. Shipping, commerce. It was a real mix.
A more dynamic, adaptable economy, perhaps?
I think that's fair to say.
And then, maybe the most defining thing, the people. Just incredibly diverse.
Ethnically mixed, yeah. And religiously, too, with more tolerance, relatively speaking.
And a trend towards democratic control.
Generally, yes. Though the sources are clear, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
No, there was factional conflict. Makes sense with such diversity.
It does. This early melting pot, did it actually lead to unique ways of governing or organizing things?
That's a great question. Did that mix force them to be more pragmatic?
It likely did. You had so many perspectives, you kind of had to negotiate.
Maybe spurred some innovation, even if it wasn't perfect?
Exactly, even if it took time.
Okay, so with that overview, let's zoom in. New York. Fascinating story, starting with the Dutch.
Right, back to 1609, Henry Hudson.
Sailing for the Dutch East India Company.
Yep, looking for that Northwest Passage. Sails into Delaware Bay, New York Bay, up the Hudson River.
Didn't find the passage, obviously.
No, but he laid the groundwork. Then, 1623-24, the Dutch West India Company sets up New Netherlands.
And their main goal?
Quick profits, mostly from the fur trade. Peter Minuit is the key guy early on.
Which brings us to that moment. The purchase of Manhattan.
Ah, yes. Around 22,000 acres.
For about, what, $30 worth of goods?
Something like that. But the crucial point, as the sources stress, is the totally different understanding of land ownership.
Right. European versus indigenous views. A fundamental clash.
Absolutely. And, based on their view, the Dutch claimed it.
Setting the stage for New Amsterdam, later New York City.
Which started as basically a company town.
Run for the stockholders.
Pretty much. So not much room for religious freedom, free speech, democracy, not in the beginning.
And they tried to impose this aristocratic structure, didn't they? The patroonships.
Oh, yeah. Huge feudal-style estates.
Granted to anyone who settled 50 people.
And some were enormous. One near Albany was supposedly bigger than all of Rhode Island.
Wow. Imagine that. A feudal lord in America.
It left a mark on land patterns, for sure, even though people pushed back.
People protested.
They did. There was discontent, and eventually they did grant a kind of semi-representative body.
Show the desire for a voice was strong even then.
Definitely, even in a company town.
What's also amazing about early New Amsterdam is how cosmopolitan it was.
Yeah, the sources say 18 different languages spoken in the 1640s.
18? That's incredible for back then.
It really is. Shows the pull of the place, the economic opportunity, even with Dutch restriction.
A very diverse outward-looking place from the start.
But not without its problems, which leads to the fall of New Netherlands.
Right. Conflicts with indigenous groups were increasing,
Retaliations for Dutch violence and land encroachment, yeah.
leading to that defensive wall, the origin of Wall Street.
Exactly. And meanwhile, New England is watching nervously.
Seeing the Dutch as rivals.
Strategic and economic rivals, yes. And don't forget the Swedes.
Ah, New Sweden.
On the Delaware River.
Right, 1638 to 1655, Sweden's golden age.
But short-lived in America. Very. The Dutch, under Peter Stuyvesant, took it over in 55, absorbed the Swedish settlers.
So the Dutch were feeling pressure.
From multiple directions. Then comes 1664.
King Charles II of England decides, enough,
Sends the troops.
and Stuyvesant.
Had to surrender. Not much of a fight, really. Charles had already given the land grant to his brother, the Duke of York.
Strategically huge for the British, control the Hudson.
Or annex their territory, Maine down to the Carolinas, now all British along the coast.
And New Netherlands becomes New York.
Just like that.
But the Dutch influence didn't just evaporate, did it?
Not at all. It's woven into the culture.
Like what?
Well, think Easter eggs, Santa Claus, waffles, sauerkraut.
Really, those are Dutch.
Bowling, sleighing, skating, even golf, apparently. And Washington Irving later romanticized it all with his Knickerbocker tales.
Interesting legacy. But even under English rule, the push for liberty continued.
Yes, the New York Charter of Liberties in 1683.
What prompted that?
Protests again, especially from Long Islanders feeling taxed without representation.
So the charter granted.
Freedom of religion for all Christians and voting rights for freeholders, landowners. A step towards representation.
A limited step, though. Land was still concentrated, right?
Very much so. Those feudalistic traits lingered.
And then New York becomes a royal colony in 1685.
When the Duke of York becomes King James II, yes.
But it still flourished under the English. Trade, settlers.
It did. Trade with the Iroquois was important. Agriculture expanded.
But that autocratic streak might have slowed immigration compared to other places.
Arguably, yes.
Okay.
Which ties into the tensions that boiled over.
Leisler's Rebellion, 1689-91.
Right. Frustration over those patroonships again. The elite controlling the land.
Squeezing out poorer farmers.
Exactly. Jacob Leisler, a German merchant, led it, inspired partly by the Glorious Revolution in England.
A revolt of the have-nots against the elite.
Pretty much. But it failed. Leisler was executed.
And the large estates continued.
Largely, yes. Shows those deep class tensions, a colony really in flux.
Okay, let's shift focus. Westward to Pennsylvania, William Penn and the Quakers.
A really compelling story. The Quakers, or Religious Society of Friends, emerging in mid-1600s England.
Radicals, even more so than the Puritans.
Definitely challenged authority, both church and state. Their beliefs were revolutionary.
Like refusing to pay taxes to the Church of England.
Simple meeting houses, no paid clergy, anyone could speak.
Refusing oaths, not bowing to authority figures.
And pacifism, a core belief. No military service, passive resistance.
Plus that belief in the inner light.
Right. Divine guidance for everyone, reducing the need for scripture or bishops as intermediaries.
Which fed into a radical equality, all equal before God.
Which totally challenged the social hierarchy of the time. No wonder they were persecuted.
Seen as a threat to the whole order.
Absolutely. Which leads us to William Penn.
Secures that huge land grant in 1681, settling a debt owed to his father.
Yep. And his main motive, deeply felt, was creating a haven for Quakers, a sanctuary.
But he also had other goals. Experimenting with government, making a profit.
He was pragmatic too, yes. His holy experiment, as he called it, was built on religious toleration.
And he was apparently quite the promoter.
America's first advertising man, the sources call him.
Distributing pamphlets in different languages across Europe.
Promising land, religious freedom, representative government. It worked.
Attracted a lot of diverse immigrants, skilled workers.
Absolutely. His liberal land policies were a big draw.
So when Penn arrived, there were already some settlers there.
A few thousand, yeah. Dutch, Swedes, English, Welsh, along the Delaware. Kind of squatting.
What did he do?
Moved fast. Set up an assembly, organized the lower counties, future Delaware under his charter, naturalized the existing folks.
Integrated them. And planned Philadelphia carefully.
Meticulously planned.
And his relationship with the indigenous people stands out.
Hugely important. He insisted on fair land purchases, treaties. The Quakers generally had peaceful relations.
A real contrast to elsewhere.
A stark contrast, sadly.
And the government Penn set up, pretty progressive.
Remarkably so for the 17th century. Voting rights for landowners.
No tax-supported church. Freedom of worship guaranteed.
No military due to pacifism. And strong opposition to slavery early on.
Planting those abolitionist seeds.
Exactly. So Pennsylvania grew incredibly fast.
Fourth largest colony by 1700.
Yep. Quaker business sense helped exporting grain, and that large influx of German settlers was key too.
Okay, briefly then, New Jersey and Delaware.
Right. New Jersey starts as a Quaker-influenced settlement in 1664. Two proprietors got it from the Duke of York.
Became a unified royal colony later in 1702.
Yes. And Delaware, lots of Quakers, closely tied to Pennsylvania.
Got its own assembly in 1703, but shared Pennsylvania's governor until the Revolution.
Deeply intertwined, geographically and ideologically.
Now, shifting focus a bit, what about class struggles across the colonies? Our sources touch on this.
Yeah, it seems most immigrants, especially to the middle colonies, weren't super rich or dirt poor.
And on the frontier especially, class lines were maybe blurrier, more egalitarianism.
Generally, yes, though the upper class definitely tried to keep power and recreate European structures.
But they didn't fully succeed.
Not entirely. Too many common people, the middle class was gaining influence, democratic traditions were taking root.
So, checks on their power, even though rebellions like Bacon's or Leisler's failed in the end.
Right. Those rebellions show the tension, the resistance, even if they didn't completely overturn the elite.
And the basic lifestyle. Overwhelmingly agricultural.
About 80% farmers by the Revolution, yeah. Lives tied to the season.
Traditional gender roles, mostly. Women in the home, men in the fields.
Children working, getting education when possible. Pretty standard for the time.
But the standard of living was generally higher than in Europe.
Sources suggest so. Cheaper land, though, getting pricier. And significantly higher wages. More opportunity.
Okay, let's pull back again. The sources summarize some big 17th century themes. The Protestant Reformation's impact.
Absolutely fundamental. Drove Puritan settlement, shaped the mostly Protestant character of early America.
Influenced the work ethic, democratic church structures.
Which then influenced ideas about religious toleration, even with exceptions.
And the Puritans' contribution to democracy.
Through things like the Congregational Church in Mass Bay.
Manhood suffrage in Rhode Island. The fundamental orders in Connecticut.
Early steps. And the New England Confederation, that was an early stab at unity, right?
First step towards colonial unity, yeah. Even if limited.
And the Dominion of New England, under James II, what were its lasting effects?
Well, it permanently reduced Puritan political power.
And ironically, maybe fostered a shared sense of grievance, a common revolutionary feeling.
Exactly. Pushed different groups together against perceived tyranny.
And despite all the regional differences, the sources point out similarities across all 13 colonies.
Mostly English people, Anglo-Saxon freedoms, self-government to some degree.
Religious toleration, varying degrees, but present. Educational opportunities. Social and economic mobility.
All leading to an increasingly distinct American character. Separate from Britain.
But those regional differences were still critical.
Definitely. New England, more Puritan early on, less tolerant initially, more diverse economy, some industry.
Southern colonies, plantations, cash crops, more hierarchy, aristocracy, reliance on enslaved labor.
And the middle colonies, our focus today, really were that middle ground.
That blend of ethnic and religious diversity, more tolerance, more democratic ideals generally.
Balanced economy farming, trade, some industry.
Right. So wrapping up our deep dive, the middle colonies were truly unique, pivotal.
A blend of farming success, diverse populations.
And a greater lean towards tolerance and democracy compared to the neighbors.
The stories of New York and Pennsylvania really highlight the different paths. Dutch roots versus the Quaker holy experiment.
Compelling contrasts, showing the complexity of it all.
And you definitely hit on some surprising details. That Manhattan Purchase.
The sheer size of those patroonships.
The radical nature of Quaker beliefs for that time.
All really stand out.
And it seems clear the middle colonies left a lasting legacy.
Absolutely. Their early embrace, even if imperfect, of religious freedom, democracy, diversity, that laid crucial groundwork.
Foundation for later American values.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given all this diversity, origins, experiences, social dynamics within the middle colonies, how might this specific region have uniquely shaped what later became a unified American identity?
That's a good one. How did navigating all those internal tensions and compromises, different cultures, religions, economies bumping up against each other, how might that offer insights?
Insights into perhaps the fundamental dynamics that still shape the U.S. today. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.